My neighbor Karen's scream could wake the dead, but her demand for my house was the real corpse in the room. I'd just mowed my lawn when she stormed over, waving a lawyer's letter like a battle flag. For months, she'd been eyeing my cozy bungalow, claiming her ancestral rights to my property because her great-uncle once owned the land. Never mind that I'd bought it fair and square 3 years ago. Karen, with her manicured nails and entitlement thicker than her perfume, wasn't asking, she was demanding. Her voice sliced through the humid air, accusing me of stealing what was hers. I stood there, rake in hand, trying to process how my quiet life had turned into a soap opera. The neighborhood knew Karen as the queen of complaints to loud barbecues, ugly mailboxes, kids' chalk drawings defacing her sidewalk. But this was war. She'd hired a shady lawyer to dig up some ancient deed, claiming it gave her rights to my home. My refusal to budge sent her into a rage. Her hand flew up, and before I could react, her palm cracked across my cheek. The sting was sharp, but the shock of her audacity burned deeper. Neighbors peeked through curtains, their gasps audible. I tasted blood, my heart pounding, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I stared her down, my voice low. "You just made a big mistake, Karen." The slap was her high note, but I wasn't about to let her steal the show. My cheek throbbed as I marched inside, grabbed my phone, and called my cousin, a real estate attorney with a knack for dismantling bullies. Karen didn't know I'd kept every document from my home purchase deeds, surveys, even a letter from the city confirming the land was mine. While she strutted back to her McMansion, I was already plotting. I spent the night digging through records, unearthing proof that her ancestral claim was based on a forged signature from 1952. Her great-uncle had sold the land decades ago, and her lawyer's evidence was flimsier than tissue paper. The next morning, I turned the tables. I invited Karen over under the pretense of talking it out. She arrived, smug as ever, expecting me to cave. Instead, I handed her a folder thick with evidence court rulings, notarized deeds, and a cease and desist letter my cousin had drafted overnight. Her face drained of color as she read, her hands trembling. "This is nonsense," she stammered, but her voice cracked. I leaned in, my tone ice cold. "You slapped me, Karen. You tried to take my home. Now you'll lose more than you bargained for." I'd already sent copies to her lawyer, the neighborhood HOA, and the local paper, which loved a juicy scandal. Karen's empire of arrogance began to crumble. The HOA, fed up with her endless complaints, launched an investigation into her own property violations, unpermitted renovations, illegal tree removals, even a fence that encroached on public land. Neighbors, emboldened by my stand, started sharing their own Karen horror stories. One had recorded her berating a delivery driver. Another had photos of her dumping trash in someone else's bin. The local paper ran a story titled "The Karen Conundrum," and her name became a punchline. Her lawyer dropped her, citing ethical concerns, and whispers of a countersuit for harassment swirled. But the real blow came at the community meeting. Karen showed up, dressed to intimidate, but the room was a sea of hostile faces. I stood and presented my case, calm but unrelenting, laying out her lies and her assault. When I played a neighbor's security footage showing her slap, the crowd erupted. Karen tried to interrupt, but her voice drowned in boos. The HOA fined her thousands for her violations, and the city ordered her to tear down her illegal fence. She left in tears, her pride shattered, her reputation in tatters. I wish I could say I felt triumph, but the victory was bittersweet. My home was safe, but the bruise on my cheek lingered, a reminder of how far greed can push someone. Karen moved away a month later, her house sold at a loss to cover her fines. The neighborhood threw a block party to celebrate, but I stayed on my porch, watching the sunset. I'd fought for what was mine, and I'd won, but the cost was a piece of my peace. Karen's downfall was her own doing. She demanded my house, struck me, and thought she'd walk away unscathed. She learned the hard way. Some battles leave scars on everyone.